This is The Weekly Set, an official podcast of TheTotalScreen.com.
I wish I was the monster you think I am.
You have come here to beseech me?
Can't ask for your soul.
Madness premier medicine for the modern world.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Weekly Set, the official podcast of The Total Screen. I'm your host. My name is Tyson, and joining me today, as always, is my partner in crime here at The Total Screen, William Rohrig.
Hello.
So today we are going to be talking about Space Force. This is episode 259 of the podcast, and it is being recorded on June 15th, 2020. We have been kind of doing complete seasons the last couple of weeks since we finished Lost. We are on our second Greg Daniels show. We did Upload 2 weeks ago, and now we're doing Space Force. Will wasn't so fond of Upload and was a little reluctant going into Space Force. How do you feel now having watched it?
Okay.
Like it more than Upload?
Yeah, I'd say that. I'd say I enjoyed it more than Upload. It's not an amazing show. It's not hilarious. I think, I think one of the problems is it's not the hard satire like people expected it to be. So it's kind of like a more earnest show, which is weird considering the subject matter it's dealing with.
I think there were two kind of shows that people were expecting, and it wasn't either of those. Like, some people were expecting it to be like The Office because it was Steve Carell and Greg Daniels, and so they wanted The Office, and that's not what it is.
Yeah, it's not The Office, even though it at times feels like
there's a little Office-y stuff in there sometimes.
Well, it feels like Steve Carell's character is trying to be like Michael Scott at times. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of channeling that, and I kind of it doesn't work when it does that, because it's kind of it just
feels out of place.
Yeah, it just feels out of place.
And then the other kind of show that people expected was something along the lines of a Veep or a The Thick of It kind of a show, like a biting satire. And it's not really that either.
No.
It's just kind of, it's not even a goofy comedy. That's kind of what I was more expecting it to be.
Yeah, it's not
just a goofy comedy. It's not really that, except the second episode. The second episode is pretty much exactly what I thought the show was going to be.
The second episode is weird because that episode they have Steve Carell's character, General Naird is the character's name, Mark Naird. They have General Naird go full Michael Scott, and a lot of people consider this the funniest episode, but I just it did a lot of goofy stuff was happening, but it felt for the show it was happening in, it felt really out of place. And I was I don't know if this works as well.
The show I expected, though. What episode 2 was what I was expecting.
Right.
And it's not even the Michael Scott aspect. It's just kind of the whole bit with the monkey, right. That kind of preposterous idea. I wasn't expecting, some people wanted biting satire. I was expecting satire. I wasn't expecting it to be quite as biting as a Veep. I was expecting more goofy satire.
More like a screwball comedy.
I was expecting goofy satire is what I was expecting, And I think that's what episode 2 was. Episode 2 was goofy satire. I think I was rolling everything that had to do with the monkey. I mean, it just kept getting more preposterous. Down to the monkey defecting,
Yeah, defecting to Chinese
is hilarious. Every aspect of that I thought was hilarious. So that was and that was what I thought the show was going to be as a whole. What it as you said, it ended up being more earnest. It ended up being more you kind of feel for these characters. They acknowledge that their entire purpose of what they're doing is stupid and ridiculous. They acknowledge this stuff about 45's behavior. They reference kind of him ranting on Twitter. satire, and him like wanting like scapegoats, or like the whole thing like, sex is for winners thing,
Yeah, sex is for winners.
That whole thing is very like the kind of satire I think that some people were expecting, but it's kind of throughout it, but it's not as like biting. It's not. It's kind of like background. It's in the background. They never name who the president is. You know who they're referring to, but they don't. Yeah. They never name the president, and it's not like it's like a real presence in the show. It's just like sometimes like there's a tweet or there's a mention, and it's like kind of like, yeah, and so. You know exactly who it is. There's like no question of who it is, but it's not directly referenced anyways.
Right. The only weird thing is the episode where like the president apparently sends in that woman from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Because she has like this super, like this energy saving rocket fuel, and I'm like, that's something Donald Trump would never actually do. A woman with like an eco-friendly like fuel solution, that's anti-Donald Trump. I don't know, like he would send in a man with a fuel that makes everything worse.
Yeah,
the real Donald Trump would.
there's kind of two parodies in her character. I think the obvious one that a lot of people that don't know too much about tech are going to see is Elon Musk.
Yeah.
As somebody who owns like doing some kind of a rocket thing and like over promising and kind of like that kind of thing. People are going to see Elon Musk in that. The actual more accurate parody that's going on is there is a company in Silicon Valley that raised $9 billion called Theranos.
Yes.
And the CEO's name is Elizabeth Holmes, and that's who it really is a parody of.
Yeah, that's who she's really parodying, yeah.
And that was like an example of like basically she promised that she could do all these things, and she kind of like hinted that they were further along than they were, and basically it was nothing but aspiration. There was like absolutely no science going on. It was pure aspiration, and so it ended up being like this huge scam, and everything fell apart. And there's like documentaries about it and stuff. You can look that up if you want, but it's called Theranos. It's the name of the company, and the CEO is Elizabeth Holmes. That's who they're directly parodying. And they're parodying Trump in the sense that he is just kind of like bringing his friends into like secretary positions and stuff. So you could totally see him doing not necessarily, like as you said, not necessarily bringing in a woman from Silicon Valley, but bringing in some private contractor that just makes things worse. You could totally see that actually happening,
Yeah, definitely.
But it would have been like Exxon or something, would have been like, who's the guy right now? We have is it the Secretary of Defense that's, I can never remember.
Oh, I don't know.
Who used to be like work for an oil company, you could totally see it being something along those lines, but it was a direct parody of like Elizabeth Holmes. Yeah, I mean, it's as you said, it's like an earnest comedy. You're supposed to feel good about these characters. You're rooting for them, even though you know that their mission is ridiculous, and they know their mission is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I guess none of them really want to be doing this mission. Like it's
a situational comedy, so the comedy is supposed to derive from the situation more than the characters. Like the characters are not written, like the characters aren't written so much as traditional comedy characters. They're not stupid, or for the most part they're not stupid or selfish, or they are like people who typically do ridiculous things.
There are those in there, not in the supporting cast.
There's a lot in the supporting cast. Yeah,
the one general that's like his assistant that's constantly is letting people into his office and shit.
Yeah, General Graviston is one. There are some ridiculous characters,
yeah.
Like, General Graviston is obviously like a big caricature, a lot of the secondary characters.
Well, Graviston's the guy from the Air Force. That's like he's an asshole, typical asshole character. What I was talking about was like
I know who you're talking about. Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. We're talking about different people.
Okay, yeah. I was saying Brad Gregory. He's like a general. He's like I think a 3-star general that's like his assistant, and he's just a horrible assistant. He's completely incompetent.
Yeah, he's completely incompetent. F. Tony.
Yeah.
Is another one who's
PR guy.
who's comedic. He's always like he's always obnoxious and trying to put a spin on things.
Yeah,
and obviously, like, he's probably like the funniest character in the show.
That's Ben Schwartz from Parks and Recreation. He's kind of blowing up a bit now.
But then you got characters like Dr. Mallory, who's a complete straight man.
Yeah.
No pun intended, because like the character's like gay.
He's probably the highlight of the show. In all honesty,
he's the highlight of the show. He is, like, John Malkovich kills it, and it's weird because, like, I feel like Mark Naird, Steve Carell, they try to play it both ways, because they do have him do ridiculous, stupid things, like in episode 2, but then they turn around and they write him completely like a straight man, and they kind of
they haven't found a good balance for him yet.
They kind of seem to waver back and forth through, do they want this character to be some kind of like Michael Scott doofus, or do they want him to actually be a thoughtful, a thoughtful person? And it's kind of like, they haven't found the right balance with that character, I don't think. So I think it comes across as weird. I think that's part of the growing pains of the show, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. They also have a lot of like kind of character comedy. Like, I'd say it's almost like character drama, but it's comedy with some of the other kind of characters. Like, for example, Dr. Chan Kai-Fang.
He's awesome.
Played by I can't remember the actor's name, but from Silicon Valley. He was amazing in Silicon Valley. And in this, he's great. He's kind of like dry, but just always like kind of an ass, but but like there's some insecurities in there, and there's some like he's got depth to his character, and so there's a good kind of character relationship between him and Captain Angela Ali, who's like the pilot that he's going to be the astronaut for Space Force.
Yeah, it looks like
Nerd's like helicopter pilot before that.
It looks like they set them up as love interests.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of telegraph it, because like they reveal like beforehand that like Chan's like browsing a dating site for black women who love Asian men, or
it's,
Asian men who
Blam,
love black
I think
women.
black lady Asian man.
Yeah, black ladies. So they kind of set it up, and then they like pair the two off. So like where that's headed into romance land.
Yeah, but it's an interesting one because they don't over romanticize it. Like, you can tell he's interested, but it's almost plays off more like a close friendship.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, they don't over like dramatize it. Like they play it off like a natural like relationship, which I appreciate. Because
like, which kind of like is a weird contrast to the rest of the show and the kind of ridiculousness.
But
even with relationships, so like relationships in the show besides that one are a bit on the ridiculous side.
Yeah. Well, I tell you something, like the relationship General Naird has with his wife. His wife ends up in prison, like
for
at the
a long
time at the beginning of the series. They never state what she did. Like, the only thing they get, like, at the beginning of like the first episode, like, they're set on moving to, like, I guess like Washington DC, because he just got his promotion to a 4-star general, and then they put him on the Space Force, and he has to go out to like Colorado, I believe it is.
Yeah, like in the boonies in Colorado.
And like he tells her, and she starts crying, and then the next thing you know, she's in prison for like 40 years, and it's like, wait, what happened? But they never say it. They never say why she's there or what happened.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, what the hell did she do, like, after she found out that news? Like, I don't get it.
I know that Greg Daniels and Steve Carell like said in an interview apparently that it was funnier to not know what she did, and so that's why they didn't reveal it. So it's not like they're holding it back for a later reveal. They just thought it was funny that you have no idea why she's in prison, but she just is.
I guess it's funny. You just have to use your imagination.
Yeah, it just kind of it gives you something to think about and go like, what the fuck is she in prison for 40 years? Like, that's a big sentence, like, what the fuck is she in prison for? Did she kill somebody? What's going on? So that's kind of like a background thing, but their relationship is kind of weird and ridiculous. She ends up like pushing like the idea of like an open marriage on drawn to him, and he wants to be loyal, but he's got like an obvious kind of love interest even before she's pushing that. He's got like a woman that he's kind of a little bit flirty with.
Yeah, he's got somebody who catches his eye, but he doesn't want to be. It's interesting too because like there's a potential for a lot of drama around this, and they do get some drama out of it anyway. But it's like it's interesting because like this is what I mean. This is a prime example of what I mean when like they're uneven with how they write this character because they have him do stupid things like send a chimp to repair a satellite.
Yeah.
And then after that though they have him like with this relationship, like he doesn't want to cheat on his wife, but then he asks this woman out, and like as soon as he asks her out, like he lays out the entire deal and he leaves like nothing out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, yeah, they could have gone the traditional route and have him just like be coy about it and like drag that out for drama, but they decided like this character is honest, right? To a fault. And I guess and that's one way where like they're trying to be earnest with this character at the same time.
Yeah.
And so it seems like they don't really have a full grasp on the direction they want to go with this character.
Yeah.
But it causes all kinds of trouble with his daughter, though.
This is a comedy thing, though. Like, if you've seen, like, Parks and Recreation, the first season is very uneven. There's character relationships and things that are set up that just don't work. There's, like, characters that act very differently than they do in later seasons because they're trying to portray a character a certain way and they realize that doesn't work. And this is something you see more in comedy than drama, because in comedy, chemistry is everything. And so, like, how characters react to each other, how they work, how they can work within their space, like what characters they can relate to affects, like, the kind of decisions they'll make. And so all of that becomes an effect. So, like, I think in most comedies, the first season is a little rough because they're trying to find their footing, And it takes a while in, and usually what ends up happening is, like, on a network show, we've talked about before how you have your original order, like your 13, and then you have your back 9. And there's usually a little space between that in which they've seen the audience and how the audience has reacted to the show. And then they've written in, so usually by the end of the season, when you get to the back 9, the last 9 episodes, they've taken what they've seen, how the audience reacted to the first 13, and they've adapted the show to fit that. And so that's when the show starts to find its footing. You can't do that on a show like on a Netflix show where you release all 13 or 10 in this case episodes in one go, and that's right. It. That's the season. You can't course correct. So where you're going to see a course correction would be in like a season 2.
Right.
So that's something to keep in mind for people that are kind of like, oh, it's uneven. This isn't working. This part was good, but this part didn't work. Know that, like, if this show gets a second season, I think it has. I'm not sure. I think it has gotten an order for a second season.
I haven't seen anything.
I think it got one fairly early in. Like, I think it was part of the original commitment, but I'm not sure. But anyways, regardless of if it does get a second season, expect that a lot of the kind of problems that a lot of people are having with the show, that people have been expressing about the show, are probably going to be like magically either fixed or like at least like altered somehow to try to work out in a different way. Because that's just what happens. I mean, you don't know how things are going to turn out exactly when it's being made. And then they rely on kind of fan reaction for how they're going to shape the rest of it. And there was no room for course correction in the first season. So where you're going to see that is in the second season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
they're going to say what worked, what made people laugh, what worked, and they're going to strengthen those elements. And they're going to say what didn't work, and they're going to reduce those.
My big takeaway from the show was that, like, it did get some laughs from me, from some genuine laughs. Like, it's not like this is a bland show through and through.
Mm-hmm.
It just, it's not my favorite comedy of the year. It's got some rough patches. Like I said, it's got some work to do. I think what struck me about it though was it was very earnest. It's like, it's full of heart. There's a lot of heart in it, and that's what I wasn't expecting. And that kind of kept the show, that aspect of it kind of kept the show enjoyable to where it could easily just been like very bland and boring. And another thing that kept the show enjoyable for me and kept it from being bad, in my opinion, was just like the performances, especially from like Steve Carell and John Malkovich. John Malkovich just killed it.
Yeah, him in particular. I mean, the moment when they had him, like there was a subplot in one of the episodes where they thought there was a spy among them, and they found out that Mallory, John Malkovich's character, had sent an encrypted message, and so they like forced it to be unencrypted and shown in front of basically everybody as like a gotcha moment, because they thought like, oh, he's clearly the spy because he did this.
Yeah,
and it ends up revealing that he is in a relationship with one of the people. There was another subplot episode where they were showing like this kind of like biodome like experiment where they were trying to do like what it would be like to colonize the moon, to actually have people live there, and it was an experiment to test that. And one of the test subjects in that he had developed a relationship with, and had feelings for, and he had written like a kind of a parody song, I guess. It was set to a different song's tone, but he had changed the lyrics and wrote this very earnest song expressing his affection. And it was like, and they played it out, and like it started out kind of like, it was like, oh, this is funny because this is, Naird's kind of overreaction. Like, what's this going to end up being? He ends up singing a song, and it's kind of like a weird parody song. It's like, okay, where's this going? And then it plays out the entire song. And by the end of the song, like everyone's just kind of like, yeah, that was fucked up. We shouldn't have seen this, like this is a private moment. And everyone's like kind of looking at Mallory like, like, oh, like, I'm sorry this happened. And Naird is like horrified at what he had done. He's like, this actually probably brings him closer to Mallory than any other moment, when he realizes just how wrong he was.
Yeah,
in this moment.
that was probably one of the greatest moments in the series.
Yeah. So it took him basically like humiliating Mallory to like realize like how wrong he was, and that kind of brought them closer in his contrition to that.
And then again, that's another thing that's uneven, because that's another moment where they were like pushing Naird more towards like a Michael Scott type character.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, but it was a great moment, because like John Malkovich just killed it.
Yeah.
Like just excellent.
He just did throughout the whole thing. He was excellent. Like from just being kind of like a funny, kind of like sarcastic presence to, being somebody who like is genuinely having some level of affection for Naird and what they're working together. And when they actually do get along, like how they work together is like really good. The chemistry when they're working together is very good between the two actors. And yeah, it's just overall, it's a very good character. Very good performance. And like I said, he pretty much steals the show. But that being said, like he's not the only one. Like Steve Carell's great in it. Ben Schwartz is mwah.
Yeah, Ben Schwartz is awesome as the asshole PR guy.
As a character that only like he can do, like
yeah.
He's kind of like the only guy that can do that character that well. Like I can't think of anybody else that can do that character as well as he did. So yeah, he's great in it. I really liked Dr. Chan, Kai Fang, was excellent. His character was, at first it was kind of like, oh, where are they going to go with him? He's just kind of like, he's taking a lot of abuse and acting kind of sarcastically and defiantly against it and stuff, but being kind of dry. But then by the end, and you start getting kind of into like more of his personal character, and less from a comedic standpoint, but just from a character standpoint, he ended up being a really good character. Angela, Ollie, the pilot, ended up also being a very likable character. She's probably the first character that you really find likable in the series, because you see like kind of how much it all means to her. And there's like a moment, I think in the first episode, where she kind of refuses to land the helicopter in a certain space that she's ordered to, because it's against like the protocol, and she gets kind of in trouble for it, gets talked down to, and she's kind of like complaining to her mom on the phone about how like, things aren't working out well, and she's kind of upset. And then she sees she
thinks she's worried she's going to be fired for that,
Yeah. And then she gets like a package from Naird that's basically him apologizing to her.
Yeah.
For basically saying like, sorry, I was a dick about this kind of, and, that's kind of like, I think the first character that you like really relate to in that moment, because you really understand like how much she's working for this, and they have a pretty funny moment with her too, where where she gets kind of take the first step on the moon as both a black person and as a woman.
Yeah, they do this funny thing where like she's trying to figure out like what the first thing like she should say when she gets on the moon, because she recognizes the historical importance of like literally her being on the moon, right? And so she's trying to like figure out the perfect thing. She asks Chan, what he thinks, and she decides
they're like brainstorming it together.
And she decides like she wants to say it's good to be back on the moon.
Yeah, which is very simple, and a lot of people were against it, but she liked it as that's just what she felt. That was the sentiment she felt, and she wanted that to be what was expressed.
Yeah.
And finally Chan's like, you should just do that. Like, don't do what other people's expectations are. Do what you want to do. And so she decides to do that, but then she screws it up because she's so in her head about everything else that she ends up saying it's good to be black on the moon. And
she screws it up, and she she creates like this memorable line. She becomes like an internet meme.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Which is really funny. It's like a cute, funny moment,
Yeah, it's a cute, funny moment, yeah.
Which is, again, it's like, that's another aspect. There's like the show, it is like, it hasn't yet found its balance, but like, I think where it ends up succeeding the most is in that area. It ends up succeeding the most in the kind of genuine moments with Mallory, and this kind of genuine, kind of cute, funny moment that Angela had, in the kind of genuine, cute relationship between her and Chan Kai-Fang. Their relationship kind of as being like a very innocent, not like it's not overly done like with like attraction or anything. It's more just like they're interested in each other, and it's kind of cute. It's very innocent. Yeah, that's, I think, what works. I'll tell you what doesn't work is the kind of like some of the forced relationships with like the daughter.
Yeah.
Like having her date like Yuri, the obvious Russian plant.
Yeah, the obvious Russian spy. Yeah, I think they were going for some comedy there, but it just didn't.
Yeah. He's one of the things like I could totally see if they do a season 2 that he just kind of disappears. You just don't see him. Like, he's not even brought up. You just don't see that character anymore. I just don't think he ended up working out in any way in the show. I think they tried to have him initially as this like adversary to Naird, as this like figure that was like very obviously a spy for the Russians, but at the same time was like kind of just, they couldn't pin anything on him ever. He was just like easily making his way through. You could see what they were going for with him. And then having him date the general's daughter was going to be like, okay, this is like his obvious way to try to get in there. And it just never worked.
No, it never worked.
At any point.
It's a good thing. Like it's basically dropped halfway through the season, which is good because it means like even at that point, even the writers were probably realizing it wasn't working too well.
Yeah, they brought in another character who is a security guard for Space Force, who's kind of like a dumb character.
Yeah.
He's kind of like a simpleton, but like, honest. Like an honest, kind-hearted simpleton character. And he ended up kind of taking over as her love interest, and it looked kind of like they were going to try to set up like a love triangle, kind of a comedic love triangle thing, and they never really kind of did. Like, it's almost like they started doing that, and then they realized this just doesn't work.
Yuri just disappears after that. Like, he sticks around for like the spy episode, but after that, he's just gone.
Yeah, he just kind of takes like a backseat, and they just kind of like, that's why I said, like, I could totally see him just disappearing in this second season. Just like, you just don't see him anymore. And it's not like, what happened to him, or like anybody addressing it. It's just like, the show wants you to forget he ever existed.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Which is interesting that they set this whole thing up as like, oh, like a Russian spy thing. And they set up like, oh, there's like maybe somebody ended up selling information to like the Indians, And it's like all that stuff. But the adversarial force was China. That's the one that ended up kind of sticking throughout the series, was this kind of like space race between the US and China as far as like who's going to get boots on the moon first and stuff. And I don't even necessarily think that worked that well, like the China elements, but it definitely worked a lot better than the Russian and India things that they were trying to do. Like, those just didn't work at all, So the China thing worked a little bit better, but I think it almost would have worked better if it was less about like them in a space race with another country to get to the moon, and if it was just straight up the stupidity of their mission, you know?
Right, exactly.
I'm trying to think of anything else that was kind of, you know, was something I thought was kind of funny, and it was understated, and that's what made it funny. Like, I think if they had talked about it more, it wouldn't have worked. Was that they had Naird go to his daughter's new school and do like a whole presentation about Space Force to like her school.
Oh yeah,
high
yeah.
School. And then like two guys that were just kind of like asshole, like, you know, guys that were there that were apparently like made fun of like his daughter and stuff like that were like, that's so cool. Like, we want to do that. And he's like, well, go ahead and sign up or something like that. Suddenly you see them like constantly, they end up on the moon.
Well, the one guy there, the redhead, he was actually in Upload as well.
Yeah. He was the AI.
Yeah, he was the AI.
Bellhop.
So,
but it was just so funny that he just.
So I saw him and I thought Greg Daniels must like that guy.
But it was just so funny that it was like, what the hell? Like, these are just like high school students and suddenly they're on the moon on this mission.
Right.
And they never really addressed it. Like, you just saw them there. It's like, all of a sudden they were involved in the missions and it was like, wait a minute, like, what's going on with this shit?
Yeah, they just sign up from our high school, then all of a sudden they're appearing in like a bunch of different episodes.
And then they're on the moon.
Yeah.
Which is, I thought that was funny precisely because it wasn't really explained. It was just like, oh wait, they're there now? Wait, what? I thought that was funny. I thought it was kind of funny.
Well, it makes sense when you say like the other people they recruited to go to the moon.
Oh yeah, the last minute recruits. I was just about to bring them up. It's like another thing. That's Eddie Brozer and Pella Bat as the poorly qualified astronauts that they just kind of got like at the last second to join the mission because everybody else is trying to get more money out of them.
Yeah, the more money of the independent contractors, and like the one guy is like an arsonist.
Yeah, and it's just like they don't even realize they're going to the moon until it's like they're like at the moon.
Yeah.
It was funny, like, she brought her bird, too. So, like, they had a funny thing where she was like, oh, somebody has to take care of my bird. And Naird's like, I'll take care of your bird. And then she's like, oh, no, wait, he's here.
Yeah, he's here. It's hilarious.
And then you see him later when she's on the spacewalk and he's like, the bird's like in her helmet.
Yeah, the bird's in her helmet. Yeah, that was pretty funny.
So, yeah, stuff like that was really, like, funny and, like, I kind of underplayed. Like, I think that needs to kind of maybe be expanded upon in the second season. Not like explaining their characters more necessarily, but more of that kind of comedy. Is what
there was like, the main antagonist of the series is like China, apparently, because China beats them to the moon and builds like a moon base, and it looks like they're like secretly like trying to drill like for energy on the moon.
Mm-hmm. And they're hiding it all under like bureaucracy, like designating their landing site as like a scientific research that can't be impeded upon and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And so like the season ends on kind of a cliffhanger where the last episode is like Naird is like ordered by the president, through the president's secretary to like...
Yeah, Secretary of Defense.
To basically go to war with China to like dismantle their moon base and stuff, even though like that would violate the Geneva Convention. And Naird is like, is racked with like, what should he do? And then he decides...
Mallory to resign.
This causes Mallory to resign. Well, basically, to get through it quickly, basically he decides with Mallory to basically defy the order, and this leads to the asshole Air Force General Grabiston to basically he's sent in to take over, and he puts Naird under arrest and basically commands the astronaut team to go ahead with the mission to dismantle the enemy moon base.
Yeah, before he's able to do that though, like it's revealed that they've actually brought guns to the moon.
Yeah,
but Naird sabotages that, has them take apart the guns. He uses parts as like a sly way of like disobeying the order. So basically they say, okay, so the only means they have is with the wrenches. So they say, okay, so that's what they're gonna do. They jokingly say it like as in like, that's the only weapons we have. We can throw wrenches. And they're like, okay, that's what we're gonna do or something. Yeah. And you realize it's not like that stupid. Like they're gonna basically go and try to disable the Chinese base.
Anyway, they do it, but when they get back to like their landing site, they find like their base is like dismantled by the Chinese.
Yeah, they kind of like, because they passed each other.
Yeah,
on
they
both
passed
ways.
each
You
other.
saw them like, they passed them and they were like hiding their wrenches as they were passing and like waving at each other like the Chinese. That was kind of a funny moment.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. So it kind of ends on that cliffhanger because it's not resolved. It's like, because Naird escapes captivity, but he has to go save his daughter.
Which is a stupid subplot.
Yeah, she's mad, so she goes off with, like, she does something stupid because she's a dumb teenager. And it kind of, like, once again reminded me of why I hate teenage drama. It's just like, no, this is stupid. But yeah, he has to go and save her, and he does. And his wife even, like, breaks out of prison to help save her, which is, like, another comedic moment.
Yeah,
But
his wife and her lover, the female guard.
well, basically it ends there with, like, he's with his wife and daughter and female guard, and the astronauts are on the moon, like, basically with no, like, shelter now, and they're kind of like, you know, and Grabiston is in charge of everything, and it kind of ends there, so it's like a big cliffhanger for, like, a second season to pick up on.
He gets a message, Naird gets a message from his secretary, from Brad, basically saying like, oh, if you come back, you're gonna be arrested, but
Yeah.
they kind of need you, you know, like, and you can see it kind of weighing on him, and then you see him in the helicopter and you don't know what he's gonna do. That's the end, yeah.
Right,
He's
sure.
like, is he gonna go back? Of course he's gonna go back, you know? Unless this is the only season the show gets.
Then he might not go back.
Yeah. But if there's more to it, then of course he's gonna go back, because he feels a sense of responsibility. So then it's gonna be like, okay, then what happens? What's gonna end up happening with his wife? What's gonna end up happening with him? And what's gonna end up happening with his position with the president? You know, it's interesting because there's a lot of questions about what's going to happen with that. But like, by the time we get a second season, we very well might have had an administration change. And if that's the case, like, how is that going to be reflected in the show? Because they could they put it in a situation like of course he's gonna go back and try to help them, but then he's gonna be arrested on the spot, you know? But,
Sure.
But like, if there's an administration change in real life, I mean, then that could actually affect how the story progresses into season 2.
Yeah, it could.
So it'll be interesting to see kind of like what happens with that and how like art might imitate life.
We'll have to see if it's renewed.
Yeah, it got a lot of negative press. A lot of people did not like the show.
Yeah, I saw that.
So it'll be both Upload and this Greg Daniels' two streaming shows, both got pretty divisive reviews. But I think Space Force kind of fared a little bit worse. Yeah, it got like a 39% from critics and a 77% from audience.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Netflix has renewed shows that have done probably as bad, you know?
Right, yeah. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. Be interesting though, like what do you foresee for season 2? Like what do you think are going to be the plot lines that are developed upon it? Which ones do you think are going to be eschewed?
I don't know. Because I think, like you said, it depends on, like, if there's an administration change and, you know, what comes out of that.
But even on the smaller scale, like what do you think we're going to see Yuri again? Do you think he's just
No,
gonna
he's
be
gone. He's gone.
Do you think they're gonna be more focused on Naird as like a genuine person and less as like a ridiculous character? Yeah, I think that would be for the better.
Yeah, I think so too.
As much as I thought the second episode was the funniest of the series for me, and that was him being ridiculous, I don't necessarily think it works as a whole for the show for him to be that kind of character. So
right.
Yeah, I think the show kind of works more as an earnest comedy. Like that's kind of where it connects more. So it's interesting. I mean, this is another example of a kind of meh show for you, I guess.
It's okay. Like I said,
you didn't dislike it as much as Upload, but
yeah, exactly.
Is this kind of about on the same page as for you as like I'm not okay with this, or
no?
This
is better. This is my favorite of the 3.
Okay, so yeah, that's it. I'm not
okay with this. Did not have John Malkovich, so
that's it for the show. All we have left is talk about what's coming up in the weeks ahead. So on Tuesday, June 16th. 16th, One Day at a Time has an animated special coming to Pop. On Wednesday, June 17th, Mr. Iglesias returns to Netflix. On Thursday, June 18th, The Bureau comes to Sundance Now, and The Order returns to Netflix. On Friday, June 19th, Love, Victor comes to Hulu. The Most Beautiful Thing comes to Netflix, and The Politician returns to Netflix. On Sunday, June 21st, The Shy comes to Showtime. Nosferatu comes to AMC. Perry Mason, the miniseries, comes to HBO. I'm looking forward to that. Yellowstone comes to Paramount, or returns, I should say. On Tuesday, June 23rd, Greenleaf comes to OWN. On Thursday, June 25th, Adventure Time has a special on HBO Max called Distant Lands BMO. So it's like a special hour-long episode. So Adventure Time fans, you have that to look forward to. There's some other HBO Max stuff. Doom Patrol is going to have its second season. That is now a co-HBO Max DC Universe show, so you can watch that on either one.
Nice.
Search Party is returning for its third season on HBO Max on that day as well. I watched the first season of Search Party. I thought it was really good. I never got around to watching the second season, so I might end up checking that out. And The Twilight Zone returns to CBS All Access. Like, HBO Max is like, well, let's hit up all these shows on this day, and CBS All Access is all, well, we'll just bring back The Twilight.
Nice.
On Friday, June 26th, Living to Love comes to Netflix. On Saturday, June 27th, Dark returns for its third season on Netflix. And on Sunday, June 28th, Black Monday returns to Showtime. So that's it. That's what's coming up in the next couple of weeks. Next week on the show, we are going to be discussing What We Do in the Shadows Season 2. So I'm looking forward to that discussion. It just recently finished, like last week. It concluded. But yeah, we'll be discussing next week.
That's going to be awesome. Love that show.
Will's had kind of a downer streak for the last couple of weeks.
I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be a downer. It's just how I feel.
But we'll see. We'll see how much of that is Will and how much of that is the shows next week, because he loves What We Do in the Shadows. So it should be. We should see happy Will.
I'm pretty sure it's the shows. The shows have been not good. So
we'll have to see if What We Do in the Shadows turns things around for Will. If we get happy Will back on the show.
We'll see. We'll have to see. Maybe not.
He's gonna be like, What We Do in the Shadows, more like What We Do in the Blados.
What We Do in the Suckdos. Nailed it.
But until that discussion, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can follow Will. He is at Voxel Hero. You can check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, as well as our site, thetotalscreen.com. You can subscribe to this podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Pocket Cast, and the entire backlog of our podcast is available on our YouTube channel, so check that out. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Good night.
Good night.
If you would like to reach out to us and make a comment, send an email to contact@thetotalscreen.com. Stay tuned to The Total Screen for the very best in genre